What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. Unusual betting patterns surrounding the play of then Charlotte Hornets guard Terry Rozier in a game nearly 2 years ago are now under investigation by federal prosecutors, part of the same probe that led to the lifetime ban of Toronto Raptors player Jontay Porter, the NBA confirmed today. The Wall Street Journal first reported the investigation, noting that Rozier, who played for the Hornets on the date in question and now plays for the Miami Heat, has not been charged with a crime, nor has he been accused of wrongdoing. The NBA said it looked into the matter at the time and did not find that any league rules were broken. But the inquiry into Rozier is part of a wider government probe into a sprawling ring of gamblers and poker players who have allegedly rigged games across the sports landscape. People familiar with the investigation have stated. In March of 2023, the league was alerted to unusual betting activity related to Terry Rozier's performance in a game between Charlotte and New Orleans. NBA spokesman Mike Bass said, "The league conducted an investigation and did not find a violation of NBA rules. We are now aware of an investigation by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of New York related to this matter and have been cooperating with that investigation." And it was actually a game March 23rd, 2023 with Charlotte against the Pelicans that is being probed by federal investigators. And U.S. Integrity notified sports books and the NBA that unusual wagers were coming in on Rozier failing to meet certain statistical benchmarks, such as the total number of points or rebounds he would record in the game. Some of the sports books stopped accepting bets on Rozier's stats that day, people familiar with the matter said. During the previous 2 seasons, U.S. Integrity sent out just 3 alerts about NBA games. People familiar with the matter said 2 of those were about games involving Porter. The other was the game involving Rozier. Rozier started for the Hornets against the New Orleans Pelicans that night, seemingly fit to play. He had been one of Charlotte's best players, averaging 35 minutes and 21 points a night. In this game, however, Rozier played just over 9 minutes before being substituted out during a timeout. He left with a foot injury and didn't return. Rozier would miss the remaining 8 games for the struggling Hornets, who at the time were owned by Michael Jordan. Authorities believe some of the people who arranged for Porter to fix his performance in 2 games last season had inside information that prompted them to bet large sums of money against Rozier a year earlier. The emergence of suspicious betting activity on another NBA game demonstrates that the scheme that resulted in Porter's expulsion and the government's investigation is more expansive than was previously known. The difference this time is that the person who attracted unusual wagers is far more prominent than Porter, a fringe player who spent his NBA career trying to hold on to a job. Rozier is an established presence who has been a solid contributor in the league for a decade and is partway through a contract that will pay him nearly $100 million. And the government's investigation will likely continue to grow. Authorities are exploring the gambling ring's potential ties to college basketball as well, people familiar with the probe said. Look, I don't want to make any aspersions toward Terry Rozier or anybody, but all you have to do is just watch the officiating, observe the officiating, especially in these games where, I don't want to say bottom feeders, but in games where you might get the inclination that people aren't paying as much attention to the score or watching as many games, not as many eyeballs are on these certain games. And some of these calls are just atrocious. And I'm going to tell you something too. I definitely noticed that over the past 2 to 3 years, the officiating is trying to cut down on the number of blowout games. But then, I mean, there's definitely, I can't say this for certain, but just from observation, you definitely get the impression that whenever a team is, for the most part, there's always going to be exceptions. There's going to be guys or stretches where teams are just shooting like crazy. You know, guys just can't miss nonstop, and you're going to have these blowouts. But a couple of years ago, you might recall, and this happened in the playoffs, since the league's become more and more about three-point shooting, and now that you can't really guard people, it's almost impossible to stop the three-point shot. You kind of got to try to make the shots less quality. There were a lot of blowouts. Remember that playoff year? I think it was like maybe 4 years ago. It was like a lot of blowouts in the playoffs. And I remember also like 2017 or something like that, there was a lot of blowouts. And you started seeing a lot more blowouts during the regular season. I noticed that the officials, when a team's like is just getting ready to go on a run, they'll try to all of a sudden now make calls to go against a team that has the momentum to try to bring the game back into a certain score, like a certain zone, like keep the lead within 15 to 20 points and not let it get out of control. Now that could be they have orders from the officials, from the front office, to say that, hey, let's try to keep this game as competitive as possible. But there's also, my suspicion that some of these officials are trying to manipulate the score because they have bets on them. Now, I say allegedly, and I can't prove this, but we already have a precedent for this, right? We already have an NBA official who served time for sports betting. Then, the NBA tried to be slick with it. Remember, there was an official a couple of years ago that actually retired, so to speak, or left the NBA. It was the same guy that was a Celtic fan. It was proved that he was a Celtic fan. His family all had Celtics jerseys and photos that came out. Remember, I did a video where it was when Miami was going up against Boston in the playoffs, and Jimmy Butler had made a crucial late, I think ultimately game-deciding basket, and you could see that official react with disgust. He's supposed to be an objective official. And we were all on that one, remember? So, yeah, I definitely think that there's some corruption going on. And we look at the fact that the NBA did their quote-unquote investigation and saw nothing wrong. And then you see that the federal investigation is going on the way with federal prosecutors, and they see something that they think is not right. So is the NBA guilty of a cover-up? Are they guilty of covering up something? You tell me. Yeah, like you said, the article is saying Terry Rozier is not a fringe guy. He, at one point in time, was one of the better guards in the Eastern Conference. So how widespread is this? I think it's very widespread, honestly. I think that sports betting is something that is done. Obviously, it's legal in most states, but I do think that there's some illegal sports betting going on. I think there's some players involved. I do. There's some things that we see that just don't make any sense. Some of these guys just play atrociously bad. Then you have guys who seemingly are hurt out of nowhere. Like, look, I don't want to blame anybody individually, but how many times we've seen a guy who seems like he's cooking as far as like playing well, and then inexplicably have these non-contact injuries. We're talking about guys who are young, and then just pull out of the game, and like it's almost like they hit a certain point total, and then they just pull out of the game. I see that a lot. Which, like I said, I don't want to say or accuse anybody of doing something that we can't prove, but this inquiry this investigation, it brings more credibility to some of my suspicions. And I'm pretty sure you guys have some of the same suspicions as well. But anyway, you know what I'm saying? We'll see what's up with this situation. And tell me what you guys think.